Her hands trembled as she wrapped the baby in the hospital-issued cloth. Her child, warm, breathing, perfect. Beside her, in the next ward, Madame Angela sobbed in silence over her stillborn. Grace heard the nurse whisper, "She lost the baby." Again. That made it the third time. Third time, no child. And Grace, just a house girl with nothing but a baby born out of wedlock, knew what she was about to do could never be undone. This is a story of betrayal and deceit that will leave you with chills. Stay tuned as this true-to-life folk tale unfolds, slowly, painfully, and with twists you won't see coming. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next part of this gripping Lego story. Grace had always been quiet, the type of girl who blended into the background like tile grout, present, necessary, but invisible. For 3 years, she'd served Madame Angela in their Victoria Island duplex, cooking, cleaning, running errands, and making herself small. She never planned to get pregnant. Not by the tailor's apprentice who'd left for Onitsa the minute she told him. She would have been dismissed the moment her condition showed. But somehow, God or fate aligned her delivery with Madame's scheduled C-section. The switch was fast, too fast. In a moment of desperation and hospital chaos, Grace whispered to the nurse she had given birth early and requested a private ward. No one asked questions. After all, she was Madame Angela's girl. Everyone assumed she was running errands, not birthing a child in secret. When the nurse brought in the lifeless baby swaddled in blue, Grace felt the walls close in. Her son's eyes blinked at her. He cried, loud, strong. And then, she made the choice. The baby Madame thought was hers. It was Grace's child. Years passed. They named him Chidiolu, a miracle baby. Madame Angela and her husband Chief poured their wealth and love into the boy. Meanwhile, Grace watched from the shadows. She became the trusted housemaid, the loyal one who stayed even after all others left. No one noticed the way her eyes followed Chitty when he walked into the room. No one understood why her face tightened when he called another woman Mommy. But guilt does not stay buried. It grows roots, quietly, then deeply. The first sign came when Chitty fell ill at age 7, a rare blood condition that left doctors puzzled. They needed the parents' blood for a transfusion. Madame offered hers, Chief too, but the match didn't come. The whispers began.
Grace told herself to stay quiet, but the hospital asked questions. Too many questions. She started hearing things from neighbors, from the new nanny. That boy doesn't look like Madame or Chief. Did you see his nose? That's not Chief's blood. Grace kept her head down, but every day it got harder to sleep, harder to breathe. What Grace didn't know was that someone else had noticed something long ago. Someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And they were about to speak. The call came on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the type of Lagos rain that floods the gutters and slows even the Okadas. Grace was in the kitchen boiling yarn when Madame Angela's voice echoed through the house, sharp and urgent. "Grace, come to the parlor, now!" She wiped her hands on her wrapper and rushed in, heart racing. Madame stood by the window, phone in hand, her face pale like she'd seen a ghost. Chief sat stiffly on the couch, glasses sliding down his nose, staring at a printed lab report. "What is this?" Madame's voice cracked. Grace's eyes landed on the paper. She couldn't read everything, but one line was bold. No biological relationship between child and presumed parents. She froze. Madame Angela turned to her, tears in her eyes. "Tell me it's a mistake. Tell me, Grace, is it a mistake?" Grace opened her mouth, but nothing came. Her tongue felt like stone. For 9 years, she had rehearsed this moment in her nightmares. She had planned 1,000 ways to confess, 100 ways to lie. But now, face to face with the people who trusted her, fed her, housed her, She couldn't say a word. Chief stood up, voice low and cold. "Grace, where is our son?" The question sliced through her like a blade. I don't know where he is," she whispered, eyes wet. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Madame Angela staggered backward, clutching her chest. "You gave birth that same day, didn't you?"
Grace nodded slowly. You swapped the babies?" Grace collapsed to her knees, crying. "I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want him to suffer. I was alone. I thought he would have a better life here." Silence swallowed the room. Chief's voice, now thunderous, erupted. "Do you know what you've done? Do you know what this means?" The walls seemed to close in. Grace could hardly breathe. All she could see was Chidi's face, her son, laughing, running in the compound, calling Angela mummy, a life built on lies, now cracking. Chief snatched his car keys. "We're doing a full investigation. We will find our real child, if he's alive." Madame Angela couldn't stop crying. And Grace? Grace had one thing left, the name of the nurse who helped her that night, the woman who disappeared shortly after the birth, the only person who might know what happened to the real child. She wiped her tears, stood slowly, and whispered, "I can take you to her." But what she didn't know was someone else was already watching, and they had their own version of the story to tell. Grace hadn't been to Mushin in years. The last time she did, it was the back of a Danfo bus, belly round with shame, hiding her pregnancy under oversized wrappers. Now she returned in Chief's black SUV, flanked by Madame Angela, silent and broken, and Chief himself, who hadn't said a word since they left the house. The streets buzzed with the usual Lagos chaos. Hawkers knocking on windows, horns blaring, rainwater splashing through potholes. But inside the car, silence hung thick, heavy with tension, memory, and fear. They arrived at a faded yellow building at the end of a narrow street. Grace pointed to the second floor. "That's where Nurse Cecilia lived," she said, voice barely above a whisper. They climbed the stairs. The door was locked. A neighbor, a soft-spoken tailor with powder on her face, peeped out and said, Cecilia, she no did stay here again, oh. She moved go Ikorodu since last year."
Madame Angela grabbed Grace's arm. "Where in Ikorodu?" "I don't know. I haven't spoken to her in years. She changed numbers after that night." Chief turned to leave. "We'll find her. I'll put detectives on it." But Grace lingered. Something tugged at her memory. "Wait," she said. "There's someone else who might know." Back at the house, Chidi sat on the floor of the study, reading a comic book, unaware that his world was unraveling just down the hall. The new nanny, Araora, brought him juice, her eyes watching him carefully, too carefully. When he smiled at her and said, "Thank you, Auntie," she smiled back, but the corners of her mouth didn't move. She had known something wasn't right in that house since the first day she walked in. Meanwhile, Chief's private investigator returned with news. He stood in the living room flipping through a file. "We tracked Nurse Cecilia. She works at a maternity home in Ikorodu now. But that's not all. She was investigated 5 years ago for falsifying birth records. No charges stuck, but there are rumors. Dark ones." Madame Angela clenched her fists. "We go there, first thing tomorrow." But just as they turned to leave, the house phone rang. Grace answered it. The voice on the other end was calm, almost mocking. "I know what you're looking for, but if you want to see the other child, come alone." Grace's breath caught. "Who is this?" she whispered. Click. The line went dead. She looked up. Chief and Madame Angela stared at her, and she lied. It was It was a wrong number. But deep down, she knew the past wasn't done with her yet. And someone who knew the whole story was watching from the shadows, waiting to make their move.
Grace didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her narrow mattress in the maid's quarters, the silent phone still clutched in her hand. Her thoughts spun like traffic at Ojuelegba roundabout, wild, fast, and dangerously close to crashing. Who was the caller? How did they know? And why now? By dawn, she had made a decision. She would go. Alone. She had already destroyed one life with a lie. If she didn't face this now, she might destroy another. She left a note under Madame Angela's door. I need to correct my mistake. If I'm not back by nightfall, call the police. Then she disappeared into the gray morning. The address the caller had texted was in Ajegunle, an area Grace hadn't stepped foot in since her own childhood. The streets hadn't changed much. The buildings leaned with age, the drains overflowed, and the air smelled of frying akara and diesel smoke. She found the compound easily. It was one of those old barrack-style buildings, each room opening onto a shared walkway. Children played in muddy water below. Grace knocked on the door once, twice. It creaked open slowly. Inside, a woman stood in the shadows. Mid-40s, wrapper tied high, face worn like a riverbed. It was Nurse Cecilia. You shouldn't have come, the nurse said without emotion. I didn't come for forgiveness. I came for the truth. Cecilia stared at her for a long time, then stepped aside and motioned her in. You really want the truth? She asked. It's been waiting for you. Meanwhile, back in Victoria Island, Madame Angela sat stiffly in the sitting room, rereading Grace's note for the 6th time. Her hands trembled. She should have told us, she muttered. Chief was pacing. I've already informed the PI. He's tracking her line. But if anything happens to that girl... Their conversation was interrupted by Adaora, the nanny. Ma, can I speak with you privately? Angela's eyes narrowed. Speak. Adaora took a deep breath. Madame, I believe I may have seen your real son. Chief stopped pacing. What do you mean? Adaora swallowed hard. Years ago, I volunteered at a mission home in Agajay. There was a boy. He looked just like your husband, exactly like Chief. He was brought there as a baby, dropped off by a woman we only knew as Nurse C. After 4 months, the boy was taken by another woman. No paperwork, no records. Angela stood slowly, her heart pounding. What was the boy's name? Adaora shook her head. He didn't have a name. We just called him Junior. Back in the Ajegunle, Grace sat on a worn plastic chair in Nurse Cecilia's room. The older woman lit a stick of Benson and Hedges and exhaled slowly. I didn't mean to ruin anyone's life, Cecilia said. But you begged me. You said the boy would suffer. You said you'd do anything to protect him. Grace looked down. He was crying. I just wanted him to be safe. Cecilia sighed. The other child, Madame's real son, I couldn't return him to her. The papers were already falsified. So I gave him to someone else. A friend who couldn't have children. Told her it was an abandoned baby. Grace's breath hitched. Where is he now? The nurse looked her straight in the eyes. He's not far, but he doesn't know anything. To him, you're a stranger, and if you open this wound, it will bleed. Outside, a child's voice rang out. Mama! Mama! Come and see! Grace looked through the window. A boy, maybe 9 years old, stood in the compound, dusty, barefoot, holding a worn football. His face. Her heart dropped. She knew that face. And in that moment, she understood the weight of what she had done. Grace stepped out of Nurse Cecilia's room like someone emerging from a dream or a nightmare. The boy was still playing, dusty legs kicking the worn-out football across the cracked concrete. He was laughing, carefree, innocent. She watched him from the corridor, eyes wet. That was Madame Angela's son. 9 years stolen. 9 years of a life meant for something else. Cecilia stood beside her. He thinks his mother is the woman who raised him. She works in a pepper market down the road. Good woman, doesn't know where he came from. Just raised him with love. Grace swallowed hard. What's his name? Obina, Cecilia said. Obina. A name full of strength and promise. Nothing like the life he was living. Grace knew she had two choices. She could bury the truth again and walk away, or she could do what she should have done years ago. Tell Madame Angela everything and let fate take its course. Back in Victoria Island, the house was tense. Chief had gotten word from the PI. Grace had been located. Madame Angela clutched her chest as she sat. She found him, didn't she? She asked Chief, though her voice was barely audible. I think so, he said. Adara, the nanny, stood quietly in a corner, heart torn. She'd seen Chidi all morning. He was calm, oblivious, playing with his tablet, joking with the gate man. But if what Grace found was true, then everything would change. Chidi might not be theirs, and the boy out there, Obina, might be. That evening, Grace returned. The compound was quiet. She stood at the door with tears streaking her cheeks, shoulders trembling. In her hands was a folded photograph of Obina and the address of the woman who had raised him. I saw him, she whispered, voice cracking. He's alive. His name is Obina, and he's beautiful. Madame Angela didn't speak. She reached out, took the photo, and stared at it. Her fingers trembled. Grace dropped to her knees. I know sorry is not enough. I lied. I robbed you. I gave away your son. But I'm here now, and I will do whatever it takes to make it right. Chief looked at his wife, then at Grace. We will go to the court. We will do DNA tests, and we will tell Chidi the truth. Carefully, gently. Grace nodded. But Angela didn't move. Her eyes remained locked on the face in the photo. It was him, her son, the one she had dreamed about, the one she had cried for. A tear slipped down her cheek. I want to meet him, she said finally, but I will not abandon Chidi. He may not have come from me, but he is mine too. And in that moment, they all realized the truth. Family isn't just blood. It's the choices we make, the love we give, and the truth we're brave enough to face. The story ends here, but the questions remain. If you were in Madame Angela's shoes, would you fight to bring Obina into your home, even if it meant shaking up Chidi's world? Or would you leave things the way they are to protect what's already built? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel for more powerful African stories that speak to the heart, challenge the mind, and reflect the world around us.